detective thrill me.
Thanks for joining us. Back-to-back theatre pictures, Jared. We've managed to jump out to a early screening of Clown in a Cornfield. So that's what we'll cover this evening. It'll be more of a early reaction. There will be spoilers. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah. We can't help ourselves.
If you don't like it,
stumble all over ourselves.
We didn't take any fucking notes because like anyone, you're not taking notes in the theatre.
No, that's right.
So
I think for Sinners, I was trying to keep things under wraps, and then I kept fucking just blurting things out. So
look, it's going to be out there.
It's going to be
out there. All right, I've watched absolutely nothing other than NBA playoff basketball.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I too have watched a little bit of that.
Yes.
I got a couple of little viewings under the belt. Not a heap. I watched one called Cutter's Club, Adam.
That was Tony Todd.
It was Tony Todd. It was made about 20 years ago, but never finished.
20 years ago?
Yes, there was financial problems on a full moon feature.
Oh.
Fucking blow me down. Who'd have thought?
God, you're going to knock me over with a feather on that. Financial problems, fuck.
Yeah.
What, so nobody paid Macca's for craft services, did they? Is that what this is all about?
Well, Charlie Band said someone else that was financing it ran out of cash. So, but yeah, apparently his story was he kept on about after he heard that Tony Todd had passed. It sort of course, opportunities.
He's like, fuck, we can squeeze a little bit more out of Tony's dead corpse.
He mentioned he said he called up like the film house and whatever, and was trying to get a hold of the negative that they never got. And he was like, no, we don't have it. So then he goes, I rustled together 20-odd company names that I'd used over the years. Which, footnote, Charlie, that doesn't make you sound like
professional.
Your books are clean. Let's put it that way.
None of that sounds good, Charles.
It sounds like there's a second set or 20 other sets of books. We need to follow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually got a hold of it. He said he figured out a way to finish it. I don't think he did. He didn't. Well, it goes for an hour and 5.
An hour and 5.
And it doesn't finish. Like it finishes on what it would appear to be, to me, to be like the opening of a third act.
Oh, Tony.
And the stuff that he added was just like insert shots with AI. Look, I had a decent time with it mainly because of Tony Todd. And it's got a touch of Reanimator about it. Like it's set in a medical school and there's a secret club. There's a club going on.
The Cutter's Club.
But yeah, Tony Todd's just kind of off the hook. He's basically just been given this character trait and just told to go nuts, I think. So,
right.
Yeah, I was always a fan of Tony. So
no, I've always been a fan of Tony, but is it was it worth?
It's not knocking Candyman off any purchase.
Okay. So it's Candyman, then Cutter's Club. Is that the fucking list?
Candyman, lengthy
gap
amount of daylight, and then Cutter's Club. Yeah, look, it's hard to not be cynical about it.
It's a money grab. Fucking hell, Charles.
Yeah.
He opened up a fresh set of books just for this.
Yeah, so I read it and I was like, "Oh, gee, Charles, this is a bit tacky." And I saw it's on Tubi. I thought, "Fuck, I watched it that day."
Yeah.
So
you got me though.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself. I wanted to see a little bit more.
Oh, that's tacky. Give us a look. Is that how it went? Just fuck.
Something like that. Look, I like to think it's an appreciation of Tony Todd. I like the guy.
Okay, fair enough. I like the guy too.
I checked it out. Outside of that, I watched Thunderbolts.
Oh yeah, how was that? I hear it's a return to form.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's the better of the recent Marvel stuff, and they finally take an angle that makes a villain. You know, they always talk about the issues with villains in Marvel movies, how they're bland or they're the same old, and this has definitely got the formula to it, but the villain is coming from an angle that makes it a little fresher, I guess. And they've already sort of sprung a bit of a sort of surprise that happens in the movie. after a week of release in America, at least. I know they've fucking basically just put out there something that kind of happens towards the end. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Good actors again.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh's really good. David Harbour's quite funny. Yeah, quite
Okay.
enjoyed it. And then the last thing I watched was I stumbled upon some Godzilla fare that I hadn't seen. So
Mhm.
my experience was it was really easy to get the early Godzilla films, but then the ones from the 80s to this kind of, and more recent ones were pretty easy to get, but the ones from the 80s to the sort of early 2000s were really kind of a bit harder to come across, and they didn't want it released. Like, I got a package of sort of, I think it was like 15 odd films in this Blu-ray package that was really cool, but then I think that was, I can't remember, I get confused with the eras, the Showa era, and then these ones are what they call the Heisei era or whatever. Again, I'm getting the pronunciation wrong, but those ones were really hard to find. And then all of a sudden, there's been a bunch of them on Tubi and elsewhere. So I'm hoping for a package shortly, but in the meantime, I've finally got to stream some of them. So the first one was The Return of Godzilla, which was kind of like 1984. And I think it was sort of one of these situations where they just brushed off all the monsters and stuff that had come in between and sort of made it a follow up to the first one, and it was pretty good. I quite liked it. So yeah, I've got a bit of fare to work through there now with the sort of 80s and 90s up to the early 2000s work.
Okay.
It'll keep me busy for a little while.
Yeah. We'll keep you busy. All right, so that was short little listing. We thought we'd do a quick up or down because they've just released a trailer and a poster for the adaptation of The Long Walk, which is the Richard Bachman, sorry. Richard Bachman / Stephen King.
Some fella called Bachman?
Yeah, Bachman. It's from the Bachman books, I believe, and he wrote it in 1979. And it looks real good. Like, I love that story. I think it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was always a surprise.
Didn't he write it when he was 19?
Maybe.
I believe he wrote it when he was 19.
So
fuck, Stephen.
Yeah.
Putting the rest of us to shame.
What was I doing
Barely
when I was 19?
fucking tie my shoes when I was 19.
I wasn't writing books. Yeah, well. But it looks really good. It looks like they've kind of gone for the exact period.
Yeah.
Which is great. I really like the look of it, the whole aesthetic. And
that was Mark Hamill too.
That was Mark Hamill. At first I thought it was what's the fella?
Sergeant Slaughter?
No, the bloke who played Hannibal Lecter, Brian Cox.
Oh yeah.
First I thought it was Brian Cox.
Yep.
And then I realised it was Mark Hamill, and yeah, that was a nice touch. Nice to have Mark Hamill in there. It just something about it looked like the story, like how I thought the story would seem.
Yeah.
So it's got a nice look. It's a cool idea. I mean, this is fucking Squid Game 30 years before Squid Game.
Squid Games, Hunger Games.
Yeah, Hunger Games. Like,
shit. Yep.
This is the thing, we talk about
Battle Royale.
It's like, when those movies came out, I was like, this shit's never been done. It's like, yeah, it has.
And it's probably been done before Stephen did
Yeah,
it too.
Like exactly. Those things are
Turkey
always
shoot.
Turkey. Yeah. Well, the less said about Turkey shoot, I think the better, and especially if you ask Steve Rathback.
There you go, Steve.
It was a really great story.
Yeah.
And I always wondered why, or I always thought to myself, why wasn't something like this picked
I kind
up?
of get the issues.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it being difficult.
Yeah.
But I just remember reading the book and thinking, fuck, that was awesome.
Yeah, I actually think, and this is saying quite a bit because the man's got plenty of work that I appreciate, but I think it's my favourite Stephen King book that I've read. And like seeing that today, I was like, fuck, this is just exactly what was in my head when I was reading it.
Yes.
The stuff that I was putting together. I looked at it and I was like, it looks like it's exactly on point. So it was a really kind of surreal sort of experience watching the trailer today and saying, this is bang on what I remember. I mean, obviously there's going to be small differences, but the like you said, what looks to be the tone of it or the feel of it all looks spot on.
Yeah.
So I was fucking super pumped when I was watching it.
Yeah, it
today.
looks really good.
Also, really excited that the fella from Alien Romulus is in there.
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, there was a few gags flying around about another case of 25-year-old teenagers, and
Yeah.
I mean, I did see a couple of usages of the little gif of Steve Buscemi rocking in with "Hello, fellow students," like that sort of thing. But I mean, shit. You can accuse just about everything
Fuck
was ever
me.
made.
I mean, you know, Beverly Hills 90210 had 30-year-olds as like 16.
Yeah. Well,
I think we just let it go.
I think he's 31, isn't he, or 30?
Yeah.
Early 30s.
Yeah,
So
I think. Look,
it's just I don't really care about that anymore. Like, I get what it is. It's sort of, there's always been the parallels drawn to war and drafting to war and that sort of thing. But yeah, super excited.
Yeah. The word.
And then the poster.
I looked it up, but I think it's the 12th of September.
Yeah, that we get another poster that looks like one of the book covers.
Yeah,
which is awesome too.
Yeah, very much like there was another brace of Fear Street posters.
Yeah,
the other day that were all exactly like the covers.
Yeah, I'm loving that trend.
Yeah, I think it's
rolling.
fantastic. Yeah, I think it's great. But yeah, the long walk. I'm really, really excited for this.
Yeah,
haven't been this excited for a long time. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This looks really good.
You better get a look at that trailer. You'll bar up.
I barred up, all right. Barred right up. And, look, I'm not a huge fan of Francis Lawrence, who's the director of it. He'd done several of the Hunger Games films. I Am Legend, I think he did. But, yeah, he seems to really have a nice touch to it by the look of it. It looks like they've done the work.
Yep.
Put the effort in. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. You also mentioned that, do you reckon Stephen's all over this? And we kind of threw out that it's just getting lost in the shuffle, isn't it? There's only about 17 other ones coming out.
Stephen is all over this.
Yeah.
He's all over it.
Yeah.
He received a check in the mail. That was it. He said,
are you suggesting it's cash for quote or cash for tweet from Stephen?
Well, he told us Salem's Lot was fucking awesome, didn't he? So it's clearly cash for quote.
Oh, dear.
Stephen will tell you.
Yeah,
Stephen will fucking tell you anything is good.
Yeah, yeah. But Stephen's not in, I'm hungry, need money situation. Like it's
no, he's not. But that makes it even worse. Be honest,
truthful,
Stephen, for
Be
Christ's
truthful
sake.
with us.
If it's shit, just tell us it's shit.
Or if your Twitter activity's light for a couple of days, I'll get the message.
Exactly. But also, Stephen, you're in your fucking 70s now. You're allowed to say it's fucking shit, right? It's shit. Be like John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Totally against it.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is.
So you say if you're in your 70s, that's all right. But once you get to your 80s and you're a bit more like John Voight, we don't want to hear it.
Johnny Voight, the fucking emissary to Hollywood. Holy fuck. Could you have not picked the fucking couple of the worst performers?
I had to laugh today because I read a brief thing about how he was shocked at the backlash that him and Trump were receiving. And I thought, mate,
how?
Have you not opened a newspaper?
Exactly.
Opened the internet? Or
they said he was doing a deep exploration into Hollywood's fucking usage of their filmmaking. I was like, the guy's not.
He suggested he would like a little bit of gratitude for what he's done. I'm like, John, just go away.
Yeah, John.
The dream team of Voight, Stallone, and Gibson are running this thing.
I cannot wait for the report.
I can't wait for Mel Gibson to say, I've done a deep dive, and what I've found is that Flight Plan 2 needs to be greenlit tomorrow.
Yeah, use of the term sugar tits is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Honestly, you can't make that. You know what? You can't make this up. This is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, you know what, Jared? 10 years ago even, if
Yeah.
someone said, "Look, I've drafted Sylvester to put together a report," I would be like,
Yeah,
"Have
exactly.
ya?"
But you know the thing
Clearly,
for me,
you're taking the piss.
I can't. Every time I see a quote from Johnny Voight, I can't help but hear it in my head in that fucking accent from Anaconda, and then I just burst out laughing all over again.
Yeah, fucking what was it? French Canadian or something? Maybe you should have a look at your output and
Yeah,
see
John.
if it's fucking should be burned.
Yeah, don't point fingers at everyone else about why Hollywood's not making money. Just watch a couple of those movies that you turned up in.
Jesus, John. Fucking hell. What did they say? He is without sin. He who was without sin shouldn't cast the first stone.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
fuck you. Seriously. All right. Okay. Let's get off that. Let's get off Johnny Voight's back. I mean, he's got a big job ahead of him.
He's got a fucking whole industry and a very large and important city to that industry to save.
I know.
It's all on your shoulders, John. Enjoy that.
God.
I just love the fact that an 86-year-old bloke is leading us into the future.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Fucking hell. Oh, sorry about that. That was fucking way off the way off the. I mean, you can just you can't get any funnier than that. You know what I mean?
No.
Jesus Christ. All right, okay. Let's take a break. Here's the trailer for 2025's Clown in a Cornfield.
This is what I wanted to show you. Isn't it cool?
Yeah, it is really cool. Where'd you get it from?
I'm OG Kettle Springs, baby. I got all kinds of stuff.
Does it work?
Try it. They're really big on tradition around here.
Every year, there's this parade where everyone gathers around a Friendo float.
Friendo.
It's the clown on all the Bay Pen corn syrup labels. He's practically a local legend.
Smile, Philly girl. You're about to become a sensation.
Be careful who you hang out with. There's some real weirdos at this town.
Yeah, 6. Very funny, man.
Hey, Ginger! You okay? There's a psycho dressed up like Friendo, trying to kill us! Call 911!
Where's the button, Jen? What is this? What
What kind of phone is it?
Clown in a Cornfield from 2025. Directed by Eli Craig, who directed Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. It's produced by Marty Bowen, who produced The Maze Runner, Terry Douglas, who produced Borderlands, John Fisher, who produced We Have a Ghost, Wick Godfrey, who produced iRobot. Now, this, bear with me on this name, Paris Casadokistas Latsis.
Yeah, man of the world.
Absolutely butchered. Who produced American Made, and Isaac Klusner, who produced First Man. The screenplay is by Eli Craig and Carter Blanchard, who did Uncredited script writing on Independence Day resurgence. I understand why he wants to continue to remain anonymous on that project. And it's based on the novel by Adam Caesar. It stars Katie Douglas as Quinn Maybrook, Aaron Abrams as Dr. Maybrook, Carson McCormack as Cole, Vincent Mueller as Rust, and Kevin Durand as Arthur Hill. The budget I could not find, so I don't know how much. And box office, it actually releases this weekend coming. The song played during the Founders Day bar rave is Wicked and Weird, a 2003 hit by Canadian hip-hop star Buck65. That was all I could find in the trivia department, apart from the fact that it was based on a novel. All right, Jared, this is going to be an interesting one because I went away and I revised.
You revised?
Yes, I revised.
Mm.
I'm going to say I enjoyed it to a degree. I think it was pretty faithful, if I remember correctly. I haven't read the novel in quite some time, Jared, but I believe it was fairly faithful. But one of the issues, the slasher stuff was perfectly awesome. I really enjoyed the slasher stuff. The twists were in hand and they were well handled. But characterizations are just in your ass. They're terrible. Like, there is no real... Like, you don't really know anyone, almost. That was how I felt. Like, going away and looking at it, I was kind of like, I didn't really know these characters. They didn't spend a lot of time building anything out of them. So I think that hurts it quite a bit. So if I was going to give it some stars right now, initial reactions, I'd give it 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
So split down the middle for me.
Yeah.
Preferred the novel a lot more because time to build character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the big thing about it. Obviously, yeah, we're both coming from a place where we've both read the first two novels.
Mm-hmm. There is a third, isn't there?
There is a third, yeah, which I'll be reading shortly. I'm currently reading Influencer by Adam Caesar, which is pretty cool as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the book is better. If I recall, you didn't love the book.
I didn't. I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the book. It was a really good read, but I didn't. It's not like a classic book, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And
looking at the film, I probably got more of an appreciation of the book.
Yeah. Look, so I enjoyed the book a little more. I remember we spoke about it, and there was kind of similar things, but I think the movie does a perfectly good job of the slasher stuff.
Yeah.
It injects a little bit of humour, which I think played really well.
Yeah, I actually think that sat quite well.
Yeah, I got a couple of laughs. Through there, and I just wasn't really anticipating that at all. I think there's a couple of solid performers in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's not deep. It's the talent's top heavy, is it?
No. Like you've got a couple of stars. You can't go more than 8 deep on, like 3 deep on your bench in this.
Yeah,
sort of crew.
I thought some of the players.
You're like the Cavs in 2007. Like you're 2007 Cavs. Okay, you're 1 deep. And I believe that one was Boobie Gibson. No, he was a starter. Fuck.
No, it's I mean the whole squad was 1 deep. Yeah, look, I think it does suffer. I mean, I came out and I said to you, I could have done with 15, 20 more minutes, which I haven't said in about 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually 15, 20.
Crying.
15 to 20 less.
I'm constantly, I'm like the Razor Gang, mate. I'm constantly, slash 15 to 20 out of that one.
I think, Jared, thinking back on our conversation about that, I actually think you could have kept it at 96 minutes if you'd have been a little bit more, perhaps trimmed down a little bit of your core group.
Yeah.
Which...
Well, I've got something to say about that because I came across something again about the book that I'd sort of forgotten.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's... when we get into a bit more spoilery stuff, we'll sort of talk about the stuff that probably does work, which maybe didn't have the same impact for us because we kind of knew what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, I actually thought it was a little better than I was anticipating.
Really?
I'm kind of somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5. I'll probably sit on a 3.5 at the moment.
Snake
but I
Eyes.
wouldn't be surprised if that gets revised to a 3
Snake
when I watch it again. But for now, I'm sitting on 3.5.
3.5. So
Snake
you
Eyes.
enjoyed it.
I think the comedy gave it a bit of punch that I just wasn't anticipating.
Okay. I think the slasher stuff was perfectly fine.
Yeah, it was good.
It was well handled. There's plenty of good deaths.
Plenty
of gore.
Couple of little things that, you end up popping up in the trailer and stuff, and you can see why they do, because they're exactly what you want from this kind of character.
Yes.
That they're throwing out there. Creepy little bits. You know, the one that I recall that everyone's probably seen in the trailer is the kind of hand over the mouth sort of thing. Yeah, that stuff was all pretty good.
Yeah.
And I also one of the funniest parts that was when you'd get the fucking shoes squeaking.
Something
pretty brutal happens,
yeah.
and then the fucking friendo starts walking off, and you hear of the shoes going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought all that stuff was pretty sound.
Yes, agreed. I think a couple of good performers, Jared. I think it's fair to say there was a couple of poor performers in there as well.
Yeah.
Kevin Durand, really, really underrated actor.
Yeah.
Really like him. He's got a very
value.
strong resume.
He does.
In multiple different genres.
Yep.
And he's not just like, I think early on he was sort of getting into certain films because of his size.
Yeah.
He's a big unit.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But he's quite a handy actor.
He is.
And he brings a nice round of kind of menace to things.
Yep.
But also, he's quite, seeing him as the mayor. He was the mayor, wasn't
Yes.
he? It created, like, he actually pulled off a lot of that kind of, hooting and hollering crap he does at the start.
Yeah.
He pulled off all that perfectly well as well. So that's what I mean about being a pretty quality actor, good guy you can have and get plenty out of.
Yep.
I thought the lead was okay.
Yeah, I thought she was pretty good, and a couple of the other performers in the group were okay. But yes, I would agree it doesn't go too deep. Her dad was all right as well, but it's not like standout performers.
No, absolutely not. Again, I thought the twists were handled well and actually were surprisingly, because I think that was one of my knocks on the book, is that the twist kind of wasn't sort of satisfactorily explained in the way I sort of read it. But I think the movie actually did all right on sort of encapsulating the whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
Reasonably well.
I'm kind of torn on there because they added a big portion of it. They added a big thing that wasn't in the book.
Yeah.
Which is, a portion of, again, going into some spoilery stuff here, but the portion of kind of doing it through generations and things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm kind of torn on that because I thought it worked okay, but it felt like perhaps that was just thrown on to get something at the start that wasn't actually in the book and replaces something probably more important to the story.
Well, that's a good question. Why did we make that change? Because
it felt to me like the part of Cole's backstory that we get sort of pulled out regarding his sister, it gets really minimised in the movie, which is something that I didn't like.
No.
Because it's quite important in the book and is really a sort of driving factor. And so this other thing gets kind of thrown in so we can have kind of a classic slasher start. And I don't know, perhaps was it budget? So you could use a similar location to do that scene and not worry about another location.
Yeah. And if I remember
things
correctly, in the book it was at a reservoir or something like that.
Yes.
But even if you rejigged it for something to happen at a barn party where she got hurt or whatever,
yeah,
I still feel you needed that narrative. Because when it pops up again later, it's kind of like...
Yeah, and that's what I feel. Like this other part about, the generational thing is sort of... It sort of replaces that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was as good for his character.
No, I don't think it was as successful.
It was perfectly okay.
Yeah.
For what we got.
It fit the slasher mold.
Yeah.
That you had an incident 30 years earlier or whatever they
Yes.
were sort of
Yeah,
portraying
yeah,
it
yeah.
as. So it fit, I
Yep.
guess, to go that way, but it just something missing that I felt was really important.
Yeah.
So I actually thought they weren't even going to bother with it.
Yeah, so did I.
But then he brings it up, and I
brings
was
it
kind
up.
of like, what?
Yeah.
So because
We
it
just
just
blurted
felt
out.
as superfluous kind of fucking information that was then given
which
out.
was a little frustrating.
The humour, nice touches.
Yeah,
Nothing
good.
sort of belly laugh sort of central, but it worked. It
Yeah,
worked
just a couple of little
times to break
bits and pieces to
some
cut
tension,
the tension and stuff.
cut the tension, which I think worked well. I was also a pretty big fan of like the things like seeing Frendo in the background of things like the
Yeah.
photograph that they take.
Yes, I would have liked
I
a
thought
little
that was
more
cool.
of that.
That was kind of cool.
Because this is probably a big like. I think the design of Frendo is really cool.
Yes.
I like the kind of how you've got the old fashioned logos and stuff showing it one way, but then the costumes are a little more sinister.
Yes. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the way that it ended up looking.
Yep.
So yeah, and you know when you get the big float in the parade, that looks pretty awesome. And yeah, that was definitely a plus to the whole thing.
Yeah, plus. Big plus. What else kind of worked for me? I mean, she was pretty sharp. 90 minutes, 95 minutes.
Yeah,
We were into the meat of the
yeah.
the
Into the meat of it.
situation by 40 minutes in. Or 45
I've actually
minutes.
kind of, I've got a couple of the points where I think they could have fleshed them out, which is something we can probably touch on when we get into the things that we didn't like so much a little more.
But I
yeah, I think
just felt like, 90 minutes, your pacing was pretty good. We were into the real deep shit by about halfway through.
yeah, we were whipping right through it.
So then suddenly it was just like a hell for leather kind of like on the hammer type of thing for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty well handled.
Yeah, I thought so.
And worked out well.
Yep.
So I was a pretty big fan of it in terms of its pacing and it's it just adhered to the formula pretty well, I thought.
Yeah,
And again, the idea that there was a number of them, spoilers of course, but there was a number of them.
yeah.
That worked perfectly fine, and in fact was kind of cool.
And the reveal was pretty good.
Yeah,
The whole cornfield aspects.
yeah, they all come out of the
it's a
cornfield.
winner there.
Very nicely handled.
Yeah,
So I appreciated a lot of that.
Yep.
It's kind of disappointing a little bit to look at the stuff I didn't like and sort of see how I felt like it just kind of it undid a bit of that stuff.
it did. Unfortunately,
I mean, for me, the relationship between Quinn and her father was not handled well, in my opinion.
it sort of felt a little like it just wasn't time for it as well.
Yeah, it was just short and basically limited to an argument about him moving them all the way over here and running away,
Yeah,
and that was about it.
yeah, which is pretty important because there's elements of that, the backstory for Cole and her that kind of end up being a basis for their friendship.
Yeah.
And their relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, it all kind of gets lost. It all gets a little left behind.
Yeah. The crew, we get like introduced to the crew,
Yeah.
Cole and his mates.
Yep.
And we've got two people in that group who are basically fucking cardboard cutouts, essentially.
Yeah.
They are there
The two male
strictly to be
characters.
murdered. Yes.
Yeah, and the two girls don't fare much better.
No, but at least they've got a little bit of like humour to go with.
They get a
couple
little
of
bit
gags.
of moment to get a few laughs and a few scares involved in there. But yeah, it's a bit that for me was one of the big downers.
Mm.
That they even when the two male characters were on screen and they got a couple of attempts at gags and stuff, it was like, move on. Like,
And again, if you needed to perhaps trim some characters, you could have to give you a few more minutes to flesh something else out. Those guys could have gone. I mean, they were really, unfortunately, they were there for what your slasher movie
Okay,
needs.
so
A couple of kills.
here's wasn't there? And my memory's a bit hazy, but was there not in the book some of the teenage characters that have a hand in it?
I believe so.
Could that have been one of those characters?
Yeah. Could we have not showed their deaths and then said they weren't texting us back and shit like that? And
Something
then,
like
boom,
that.
we get the twist. One of them's wearing the fucking Friendo mask.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly, but I thought that there was something like that where friends were involved, which probably would have worked well because in this scenario, it's working in a number of twists.
Yes. And it
So-
didn't have to be explained as to why. They could have killed one of them and then removed the mask and found it was one of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just turns out it's fucking dug this entire insidious little plot of theirs has dug itself into everybody.
Yep.
But it just it failed to take that route, which
Yeah.
wasn't a good idea. And you're introducing like characters to show us that they're there later, like the
Yeah,
fucking teacher and stuff. And I was just
Yes.
like,
Yep.
you gave him like a 2-minute fucking thing at the start.
Yeah. Which, I mean, as I said, there wasn't really a surprise for us, but we're not the only people that have read the book.
Yeah.
There is going to be a bunch of people that are going to get a real buzz out of the twists and turns in this that haven't read the book. But so when we're coming from a position where we've read it, you just see these characters and you're just like, oh yeah, I see where this is going to end up.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I didn't love that so much. When we're talking about stuff that was cut out too, I don't have too many complaints about when it all comes out, the twist comes out.
Yeah.
But in the book, that was a fucking massacre.
Yes.
This time, everyone else at the party just disappears
Yeah.
and into the barn, and we just stay with the main characters. I wanted to see a little bit of the...
Well, you could have just seen cutting a swath. I mean, it
Yeah.
could have been a couple of minutes.
Because not only that, but that whole thing plays a central part in setting up the sequel book.
Yes.
So if they intend to take the same story, if this is a success, and try to stay faithful to the storyline, which isn't a bad idea because they've been reasonably well received all the way through,
Mm-hmm.
you've sort of you've sort of hurt yourself a little bit.
A
by
little
not
bit.
at least showing something. I don't mind if it's on the periphery, but it had to be pretty big. And
Yes.
it wasn't.
And it wasn't. Yeah, it was quite kind of low key in that regard.
Yeah, there's only a handful of people that you see that get mixed up in it, and then everyone else sort of disappears and you don't see what happens to them.
Mm.
Maybe that's intentional. Maybe they've already got an idea or got a way that they're going to handle that in the next one. But my first impressions are that shit, you really undersold that part.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say that it wasn't like what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
In terms of like the carnage.
Yep.
Because the book really sort of doubled down on that. There was a
Yeah.
lot of carnage
Yep.
during that party. The ending, it just left me a little bit like,
Cool?
yeah, quite cool.
Frosty?
Not frosty, but just it cooled me because I just felt like it just kind of ended. Like it didn't. I would like to have seen a bit of setup, maybe for a sequel.
Yeah. I tell you one thing I really did like about it though was, and saying it again for the 30th time, spoilers, but
Yeah.
talking about characters that are involved. Kevin Durand coming out at the end with the paint on.
Yes.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I
Interesting
thought,
look.
yeah, this is kind of cool. Like he's not necessarily doing the whole get up, but
He's
sort of
kind of in
presenting it in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah, I thought that was perfectly fine.
I think for me, it suffers because of all the stuff that they kind of undersold earlier.
Yes.
That we miss out on the main motivations. So the motivation for this one is a little different, and I'm open to it, but it just didn't quite feel as strong because it's still tied to the stuff that they left out.
And look,
And-
Jared, another thing I'll throw out there is and it comes with the good and the bad, is to have the two central male characters come together
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Well, they went early with that.
They did, but what I
Yeah.
mean is that's unseen. We don't see that in slashers.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it.
Yes.
So I really liked it. I thought it was a cool way to play it. It was perfectly. It was something different.
Yeah.
And slasher movies are very hard to get something different.
Obviously,
into
we had one backwards fucking peanut in our session who
Yeah.
seemed to have a real issue with it.
Fucking hell, yeah, there was no need for that. But-
Really?
But the problem that comes with it is that relationship is not really formed.
Well, I think Rust gets undersold.
Yeah, fuck, he does nothing. Like you see him with her to take her to school,
Yeah.
and then he fucking disappears.
And this is where the extra minutes could
yeah,
be.
they could have been helpful.
So the parts that I felt were the massacre, a few extra minutes of that, Rust, giving him a bit of work. Obviously, you know, if they'd made the decision to cut the angle about the sister, okay. But the incident at the parade,
Yeah.
I thought that could have gone a bit longer, been a
Yes.
bit bigger too,
Yes.
because it sort of just gets whipped through as well.
Yeah, it felt like they kind of flew through some key stuff
Yeah.
that would have made the film stronger.
Yeah.
And it's weird that they didn't kind of catch on to that as being important.
In a way, I'm glad, even though it spoils the twist, I'm kind of glad we read the book because it filled in some of the stuff
Yes.
that possibly made the experience a little more enjoyable, because I was like, okay, well, I don't get this portion, but I already know about the character or have an idea about the character from the book, and kind of have that stuff that we're missing already filled in.
Yeah.
So in a way, that was a positive. But yeah, it's a little, there was a little tinge of disappointment about some of the stuff that was not in there or not handled as well.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff with it in the States. I believe because they're tied up with Shudder there, and they're doing a run of, like, you can see a preview screening, but it's got to be at a drive-in.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So they're doing like a week of drive-in preview before it'll be in cinemas and stuff like that, and came along with some very cool posters and things that were designed specifically for the drive-in run. And
yeah, I'm very happy with the way they've marketed it.
yeah, and Adam Caesar's been getting pretty involved in all the promotion. He actually seems like a really good guy. I've followed some of his socials and things like that, and it's good to see someone like that put this stuff out in a few books and get one picked up.
Yeah,
and end up in a genre and on the screen, which is clearly something that he's got quite a passion for. So.
Yeah. I was happy. I'm definitely not against. And I was pretty excited to kind of see it.
Yeah.
I just felt like another viewing is probably needed for me this time. And as I said, I kind of looked back on it and I kind of saw a few more of the issues.
Oh, there's definitely holes, no question.
But overall, for a first reaction, I think you'd have to say it was fairly successful.
What are you thinking in regards to a sequel? You reckon we'll get one?
I think so.
Yeah.
Surely it wasn't big budget.
No, it doesn't look like it.
So I feel like they'll recoup and probably make some profit.
And our session last night, I know it was
pretty
preview
full.
screening, but she was pretty fucking full.
Pretty full.
So hopefully that's a good sign.
My one concern is I remember the second book being not as enjoyable.
See, the thing for me was the second one goes full on into the themes and gets very tied up in current political situations.
Yes.
Which is now relevant again, given
of course,
a certain person that's back in the White House.
Yes.
Which to me was a very clear theme in the second book.
Oh, definitely.
But my concern would be that this, again, recollection might be a little hazy, but I recall the second book being a bit grander, like bigger things.
Yes.
Other than the massacre.
Certainly down the stretch, there's a lot bigger.
Yeah, it would require a lot of people and.
I just remember the second book being much slower, and there's a lot of stuff early on where I was like, I remember just thinking, we could have got through some of this.
Well, the first one's definitely more slasher.
Yes.
It's the slasher.
The
with
second
some of
one
the
steps
subversion.
out
The
into
second
some
one
other things.
branches out, but I also think it could make for a very interesting movie.
Well, again, it all depends on how they adapt, right?
Yeah.
And so clearly they took some liberties with the book in this one. But some of them, in my opinion, did not work. But, you know, like they kept it lean, kept it mean, which is good. I haven't read the third book. I don't know what the go is with
The
that.
Church
but
of Friendo.
That will be interesting.
I
We
have
can get
been
our hands on that.
Well, I was circling for a little while and I just haven't pulled the trigger. But I think now that we've watched this, I'm keen to get my hands on it and get through it. So I'm working my way through Influencer. Once I finish that, I'll order the next one straight away, and we can get back to it and possibly revisit with another episode later, like we plan to do on Sinners.
Yeah, you purchase it with 400% tariffs, of course. Which is
I'm
great.
pretty sure Amazon Australia's got their copies now, so
okay, good.
hopefully they don't sting me. I think it was
Pre-tariff.
Pre-tariff. So I better fucking pull the trigger now that you mentioned that.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'll cost me $55 to get a read of it.
God. All right.
At which point, I'll be going straight to Audible.
Yeah, exactly. So that was Clown in a Cornfield. You can find us on Podomatic, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com, and Instagram at thrillmepodcast.au. Keep an eye on Facebook page to see what we're going to cover next. But until then, take it easy, everyone, and we'll catch you all later. Cheers.
Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.